Okay, we only have an hour, so I'm going to get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the first in the series of Law Librarian office hours, where I'm going to walk you through specific examples of different legal research questions, focusing on what you can find freely online. My name is Garrett Shields, and I'm the Senior Law Librarian at the Witkin State Law Library, a section of the California State Library, where I've worked for the past 10 years. I'm joined today by my colleague, Elena Smith, the outreach librarian for the Witkin State Law Library, and she's been invaluable in supporting this project and will be assisting with the Q&A. Before I get too far, I also want to acknowledge that I work on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Nisenan and Miwok peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. As such, I'm a guest on this land and want to acknowledge, thank, and honor my hosts. In this webinar, I'll be focusing on what you can find online regarding California legislative research. There are a lot of resources out there, but as you'll see, you may have to piece together bits of information from many different sources to get what you're after. After this session is over, we'll take your feedback and try to incorporate it into further research into future sessions of this series. For today's webinar, we've pulled some examples from questions submitted by participants when this webinar was announced, as well as some previously answered questions. If at any point you would like to submit a question that you would like to see answered, please drop them in the Q&A section. That's the goal of this session, to offer a chance for people to ask questions of a live law librarian and see how they may conduct their research with resources freely available to them. I want folks to feel comfortable knowing what resources are out there and how to use them. If I can't complete a request live today, due to the complexity, lack of specific resources online, or if we're running short on time, we still want to assist you. If you're not helped live in this webinar, we ask that you contact us by email or our Ask a Librarian system, and one of our law librarians or I will follow up with you directly. I'll try to walk you through several requests as time allows, leaving a few minutes at the end to answer general questions that may come up. To make sure that you have the best experience possible, I'm going to go over a few technical housekeeping details, and then we'll get into the presentation. If you have a legislative history question you'd like to see researched during this presentation, please type it into the Q&A section, and I'll attempt to walk through it. Please also drop general questions you may have, and I'll attempt to answer them in the last few minutes of the program. If you submit a question that you hope to be answered in the webinar today, we will not identify you or your agency in any way. All personally identifiable information will be removed when presented to ensure your privacy. This presentation will be recorded and made available within a few weeks of its completion. Live transcription is enabled, so if you'd like to see captions, click the CC icon to show subtitles. If you run into any technical difficulties during the presentation, please put those in the Q&A section and we will try to help you if we can. We have emailed you a handout of research links to accompany this presentation. Elena will also link to this document in our chat window. We encourage you to open it now and follow along during the presentation. We've also added links related to the California State Library in the chat window. For any state employees without a library card, please consider applying for one through the posted online application link. And don't forget to register for one of the state library's many other webinars. One last note before we start. If you're after some granular detail about the specifics of the collections or resources being used, I'll refer you to our prior webinar titled Research with the Witkin State Law Library, where we go over those things in detail. In the limited time today, I want to focus on how you may go about doing this type of research. So let's get started with the first request. Okay, and here's the first one. Does the California Information Practices Act prohibit the collection and use of email addresses of individual city and county government employees? For example, the names and email addresses of each city and county engineer or each city and county public works director, if the local jurisdiction published the names of those individuals and their work email addresses on their websites, and a state employee compiled a contact list by going to each website. Okay, there is definitely a lot there. First off, I'm going to say that I'm a librarian, not a lawyer, so I can't authoritatively say, yes, this is legal, or no, this is not illegal. But what I can do is kind of analyze this question and find information that may help you make a more informed decision. So let's go ahead and get started with a blank slate here. Everything I'm going to show you is freely available online. You don't need any paid database access. I'm not even going to show you anything you need a library card to use. So if you're not a state employee, um, it's not a problem. Everything here, everybody watching should be able to access. So let's start with the California Information Practices Act of 1977. I don't know what code sections those are. That's fine. Um, but I will have to find out what those code sections are so that we can review the legislative information uh, related to them. To start that, I'm going to go to the California Legislative Information website. It's on your handout. It's the number one link above the legislative materials consulted in the webinar header. And we're going to just try to search that phrase and see if we can find the related code sections. To do that, I'm going to go to the California Law tab here, and I'm going to do a text search. Some of you may have had experience trying to find specific things in these boxes. It's a little bit more complicated than a Google search, I feel. Depending on how you word things, how you group them, you're going to get vastly different results. Let's go ahead and just try to put in California Information Practices Act. Huh, nothing comes up. That's okay. A lot of this research is going to be hit or miss. We're going to put it in quotations to see if we can find the exact phrase. We're going to search all codes. Okay, we get a lot more hits. We can see the grouping of the words together here, but it's not all of them together like it would be necessarily in a Google search. That's fine. We're just looking for the code citation to the act. And it looks like I see bits and pieces of it here, but I see that it's section 1798 is where it starts, but I don't see what code title. I'm just going to click on this citation and open it up so that I can get a little bit more information. And it looks like it's commencing with 1798 of the Civil Code. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I know where this starts, I'm going to go back to this California Law tab, and I'm just going to dive into the Civil Code. Look for section 1798. It's going to be in Division 3 here, obligations. And just scroll down a little bit. Okay, we have it here. What I'm seeing is that there's several articles within this law. And if we are to review what this act may say in its entirety, looking for specific provisions, it may be a little difficult. While the California Legislative Information website has a ton of information, some of the searching is a bit limited. For example, I can't search within just this chapter and these articles. So I would have to find a way in which to search for potentially keywords in each article itself. As the patron asked about compiling lists of email addresses, what I could do is click on either the article title itself or numbers. And then if you're on a PC, you could just do a Control F and type in what I'm going to look for is mail, keeping in mind that email may show up as email no spaces with a hyphen. It might be electronic mail. So to ensure that anything pops up, I'm just going to search mail. I don't find anything. as I've run through this question a little bit prior, I can say for sure that this is the only article which contains any instances of email or electronic mail. And so I'm going to look to see what section maybe that falls under, what it pertains to. Is it relevant to the patient's question? It looks like this is actually more about disclosures um, and a data breach potentially. Um, so I'm going to tab through the different instances of mail. I don't really see anything that pertains to the patron's request, which is fine. But what it does mean is that if we go back, maybe we should look at what these articles are. We can start out generally. The first article in a chapter will be general provisions or just a broad overview. Definitions is always useful though, too. Um, this question at its source seems to be about collecting someone's personal information. So perhaps that's something I want to look more closely at. And I see a definition for personal information, uh, and it seems to pertain to an individual's name, social security number, physical description, home address, home telephone number, medical history. I don't see anything related to maybe their public-facing email address. It seems like that may be a little bit outside the scope of what may be focused on in this law, but I don't know for sure. Um, what I can do though is take a look at these definitions and see what the intent behind them may be, see if there's more information available. To do that, when you click on any specific code section, such as Civil Code 1798.3, at the bottom here, we're going to get a note to the last piece of legislation that affected this section. And for this one, it is Statutes 2022, Chapter 452. So I'm going to make a note of that. Statutes 2022, Chapter 452. But what I can also do here is, okay, here's something to note. It's a little quirk of the legislative information website. If you click on an article, and even if it just has one section, it's going to show you a certain view. But if you click on the section itself, it's going to bring up a few more options. And when you're on a specific section, it's going to have this cross-reference chaptered bills link here. If you click that, it's going to bring up more history notes. So we do have like the most recent section that amended this code section, but it also has all the prior ones dating back to 1987. We see that it says amends here. So with some context clues, we can tell that this is not the earliest piece of legislation related to this code section because it doesn't say adds and because it's not the California Information Practices Act of 1977 for no reason. So we're going to keep that in mind. But what we want to do right now is look to see if there's any information that we could glean from this most recent amendment. Clicking on it, it will show you can do a comparison of the different amendments as they were added in that piece of legislation compared to how they read now. And so you can make some determinations like, oh, this word changed here. That's of interest to me. Let me check out this piece of legislation. So for example, we're going to take a look at what you could find if we were to check the most recent piece of legislation, Statutes 2022, Chapter 452. To do that, we could stay on the California Legislative Information website. We're going to go to bill information. And here we can put in the statute number, which is 2022, and the chapter number, 452. Statute year, chapter number, and search. It brings up the chaptered piece of legislation. This is useful to show that it looks like a lot of different code titles were affected by this piece of legislation. So this may be more of a reorganization of the law itself rather than something intended to change the meaning of the law. How could I determine that? There's a few ways. You could look at the different versions of the bill from its introduction to when it's chaptered and view how it's changed over time. Select the version you want to go to and hit go. When this bill is first introduced, it looks like some of the things it's doing is changing the title of the commissioner. So maybe the commission itself changed and the laws need to be rewritten in order to reflect that change in another section. So we could look through the different sections. We could also check out the bill analysis. These are the committee analyses that are issued each time the bill goes to a different legislative committee. Each one of them will build upon previous analyses. So I'll just click one at random here and open it up. It will have a summary of the bill, which indicates that it does revise statutory references. There are further comments on the bill. Sometimes they mention previous pieces of legislation. Votes are mentioned. This sort of information can give you a better idea of what the legislation actually does. This is available for all bills on this modern California Legislative Information website. So with that information, we can find what this most recent amendment does. But as we saw, the amendments went back to 1987. Maybe I want to take a look at how this California Information Practices Act existed in 1977. Maybe it would be more informative if I could find information related to the act when it was first introduced. The California Legislative Information website only goes back to 1999 for all this detailed information, but we will go to the, on your handout, there's something called the California State Assembly Office of the Chief Clerk Archives. And this is what that page looks like. Here's the home page. We're going to select the archives here. Okay. And so what we're looking at here is information of all the statutes dating back to 1850, along with assembly journals and histories and assorted other primary information. We're going to go to 1977 to see if we can find the statute that enacts this bill, or that enacts the California Information Practices Act. Here we are, 1977. And since we don't know the chapter number of the statute that added the Information Practices Act, what we can do is look in the index here. And we're just going to look for keywords. As I've been searching this earlier, it's going to default us right here to Information Practices, Office of. That seems pretty indicative of what we're looking for. And then it's got a number here, 709. That, depending on what year of an index you're looking at, could mean different things. But here it says citations are to chapter numbers, whereas in other versions, it could be a page number. So we know that it's chapter 709. from 1977. I'm going to make a note of that. And we're going to go back the chief clerk of the Assembly Archives, this 1977 page, and we're going to look to see if we can find chapter 709 and to see if it is the act that we are looking for. Okay. There's a lot of big files here, so sometimes these will be turning for a while. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is that while we're going to be looking at the chaptered version of a piece of legislation, that will only tell us the final version. If we want to look at why that initial statute was written into law as it was in 1977, we're going to have to find the bill versions as well. Okay, this is loaded. Here we go. We see Chapter 709. We see Information Practices Act of 1977. And we see here, we've got definitions are still there. It's under the same code section number. They talk about confidential information. And so we can maybe see that the language has changed a little bit. And to get at the intent of why some of this may have been added, we can read through this. We also see personal information is mentioned down here. Sorry, this is really small. Okay. But all this is to say that we could check all the way back to this initial piece of legislation. If we see something here that interests us and we want to find the bill versions for something from 1977, that won't be on the California Legislative Information website, as that only goes back to 99. There was an archive version that goes back further. But to find these bill versions, first we're going to have to find the bill number. To do that, we're going to go back to the chief clerk of the Assembly Archives 1977 page, and we're going to look at this piece right here called the Table of Laws Enacted. While all the statutes are in here, there's a lot of material in the front of these volumes that's also very useful in our research. The Table of Laws Enacted is a list of all the statutes that were chaptered in that session sequentially with their accompanying bill numbers and authors. So we're going to go down to 709, zoom in, and try to read this. Looks like it says 170. If you look at some of these others, if you're trying to look at them, you'd be hard pressed to find out what some of these are. We have at the library created a tool so that you do not have to do this step. I'm going to open up a new page here. This is also on the handout. It's the California Statute to Bill Numbers link. And here, for any piece of legislation dating back to 1865, you can type in the year number if you know that, and the chapter number if you know that, 709. Going to hit refine results. Look at that, SB 170. So it is what it looked like. Ideally, I mean, we'd still have to check that bill. Now it's from 1977. There's not going to be an official published version of these bills online, but there is a large collection of these bills that has been digitized, which we'll check out now. This link is under the California Legislative Publications collection on the handout. And it doesn't look like much, but this is one very useful resource. This is a project that was conducted between the University of California and Google. It used some of our bill books as well, where they scanned a ton of bills. This is Assembly bills from 1911 to 1988 and Senate bills from 1903 to 1988. Um, all this talking, I forgot the bill number, SB 170. Okay, let's go. Click over to Senate bills. I'm going to scroll down to 1977 and try and find 170. So this has bills 157 to 199. There are two different links here. They just take you to different resources where the files are hosted. I'm going to go to this Hathi Trust link. I like this because it just displays it very simply. You can also have a URL that you can link to directly with a page number that gets someone there very quickly. And we're going to look for uh, SB 170 here. And let's just take a little scroll. You know what? I know where this is at. Just going to punch it in here. And here is the first version of Senate Bill number 170 from 1977. This information can be useful in showing how the bill evolves over time. We've got the Legislative Council's Digest here, which is pretty extensive for this bill, discussing the intent of the bill, how it will operate, um, and you can also not see this only this first version, but also subsequent versions and how it changes over time. So all this is to say, if we go back to this idea of the California Information Practices Act, um, does it prohibit collection and use of these publicly facing um, email addresses? If we read through what the act says currently, if we look at the intent of the modern pieces of legislation, we can also trace back the historical legislation, what the intent was there. We can see that through some of the citations that some of this is more concerned with uh, confidential information and protecting a person's private life. So for things like work email addresses that are published on someone's website, I didn't find anything that would prohibit it. I would maybe research more thoroughly each section, but as we're kind of just exploring how to do some of this research here, I hope that showing some of those resources is useful. And I'll be reaching out to this patron a little bit later today to confirm um, if this helps them in their research. Um, so let me see here. See if we have any fresh questions from patrons. Okay. Okay. There's a question about differences between the committee and floor analyses. Um, from what I've seen, they are pretty similar in the information that they convey. I think that the different committees focus on different aspects of the legislation. That's why all of them are listed there, and all of them kind of review different parts of it. Um, but there's not a meaningful difference for if you're looking at the analyses, typically people want to see all of them to get a better sense of the histories themselves. Okay. We have a question here. Hello, I'm a privacy officer with a state government entity, but I'm not an attorney. I would like to learn how to conduct research on privacy related cases. Sure. So case law research is definitely something that's a bit more complicated if you don't have access to databases for such a thing, like paid databases like Lexis or Westlaw. Um, we do currently offer access to Westlaw in our reading room. Patrons can come in and check that out. If you don't have access to something like that, um, one of the best resources you can check is Google Scholar. You could do case law research. You can limit it to federal courts, California courts. Um, if you have Let's take a look. California Information Privacy Act. Nothing's coming up in California courts. There are federal court cases here, though. Um, you can also change your terms here and find links to um, opinions here that might be useful for you. Some of those paid databases, you get a lot more information. If you have like a code section, they will link you to precedential cases, which um, makes everything much simpler. This is a lot more, without paid databases, you do have to do a lot more legwork to try to find what you're looking for. And a lot of it involves just doing multiple searches, changing your terms. And being really tenacious with what you're looking for. Sometimes you have to expand your vocabulary with what you're looking for. Sometimes you need to rein it in, like I was doing earlier with the email mail example. But this is just one way that you could do something like that. Okay, I'm going to bounce to another question that we had. Um, let's see. Okay. I'm looking for legislative committee analyses from the 1995 session regarding AB 1158. This is pretty easy. With a citation to the year, to the bill number, we don't have to do a lot of that searching like I showed you in the last example. Um, but what we will do is show that on the California legislative information page here, the we'll go to bill information, and we see it only goes back to 1999. They're looking for 1995. So on this home page, you can see that in this little note, there's this link tucked in here that says measures prior to 1999 can still be found at this website here, which will remain as an archive for legislative information. Let's just go to that here. This is also on the handout under California Legislative Information Archived page, so there's a link to that separately. Uh, and here it is, archived page. Looks pretty archived to me. We're going to go to bill information and check that session number or session year. And sure enough, it goes back to 93 and 94. Perfect. We're going to select 95, 96. The question regarded Assembly Bill 1158. Put 1158 in with the bill number and hit search. No results. Okay. Strange. I'm going to go back. Everything looks okay to me. The House here both should pull Assembly and the Senate. I'm going to change it to Assembly. There it is. For whatever reason, you may run into some quirks on this older website, but the information is there. You may note that the URL isn't a permanent URL, so any searches that you do, you won't be able to link to them. But all of the analyses are here. So they may look a little different in this older format, but same information is there. Okay. Checking in on some things here. Okay. What resources does Witkin Law Library, State Law Library have that might be of interest to a correctional law librarian and her patrons? Recommendations for further exploration. Yeah, There, uh, aside from just like recommending our catalog that's on the handout as well, we if you are a state employee, you can get a library card and have access to more databases. The online resource, which is also in on the handout, um, will give you like access to just a broad collection of materials. Um, a lot of folks working in correctional law have questions about the current law, about the reasoning behind them, about what you know that first question that we answered, like why does this law read this way? Legislative history, you can find a lot of stuff in there. Sometimes someone may want to research what they're sentenced under. If you know, the code section citation, um, we can do research on that. Um, as from what's available just online, we can do the same types of research I've been showing. But if you reach out to us, we can also maybe do some research to uh, find if there are precedential case law, things like that, with the citation to a code section, and we can send that your way just to help someone better understand um, uh, the laws that are affecting them. Here's a question here. Is it possible to look at the section of the Civil Code regarding agricultural liens and limited liability companies and see when it was modified? We can certainly try. I'm going to have to do a little bit of searching on that because I don't know that off the top of my head, but we'll go to California law, text search. Um, Patron said it's a civil code section, so I'm going to select the civil code. Um, just going to start out with liens, um, and see where we go from there. Okay, we're going to get a lot of stuff on liens, so I'm going to have to go back and agriculture. Hmm. All right, it looks like there's a few things here. I'm just going to open up one of them and if you try to open in a new tab from these searches, it also doesn't work. Something gets me every time. Okay. Obligations arising from particular transactions, liens, other liens. Um, so let's see. Trying to see if maybe I should try to include companies as well. I don't necessarily trust the search here in this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Google. I'm going to put in, I'm going to copy a lot of what this patron asked. All right. Let's see. All right. I see 3061.5 being mentioned quite a bit. Let's just take a quick look back at that. Let's see. Okay, I'm seeing liens. All right. If this is the section that this patron is asking about, we can click on it. we can see that it was amended by statutes 2006, Chapter 254. I'm also going to pull up this cross-reference here. Okay, look, and it says amends. It doesn't say adds. That gives us something to ponder. What we're going to do is look at this statute here to see if there's any more context. 2006, chapter number 254. And here we go. Okay, this looks like it's also a loaded bill. We could see some bill analyses here. I'm going to go to the first one to see if it can't synthesize things more simply for me here. All right. Looks like this is a big modernization of the code. Um, Looks like this is going to be pretty extensive. What I am looking for here is potentially a citation to an earlier code section. It does point to several code sections, but these may be concerning other aspects of this bill. But this is the kind of thing that you may want to be looking at. You can also do a Control F and, type in stats and see if anything pops up that way. This is just one way to find something like this. Okay, well, we see something last amended in 1965. We could explore that further. If on your own you see things like this and you're making note of it, what you can do from there is, and let's see, this code section was, forgive me, 3061.5 civil code. What we're going to do is go to statutes. We're going to go back to this section here. And since we saw something related to 1965, I'm just going to take a chance and see if there's anything related to the statutory record here. The statutory record is useful if you know that a code section was altered during a certain year, but you don't know by what statute. This will show you. It lists all the codes alphabetically by their title. We're going to try to find a civil code here. Forgive me for not being super thorough with this as I'm trying to get lucky and see if this was changed in 1961. Let me start closing out some tabs here. We're getting lost. Whoops. All right, we're going to go back to this. Statutory record. Okay. So code 3. So we're not on 361.5, but this is something that with a little bit closer reading, and honestly, brute forcing something where you could go through each potential year here, look through, you're going to look for the statutory record, and you can check to ensure that a section wasn't or was changed for any section that you have. That's long, it's more complicated. It is thorough and effective. Some of this research without a database access is going to unfortunately cause those kind of issues. But it is something that you can do. I'm sorry if that wasn't the cleanest answer to your question there. But again, if you want to send that in by email, or ask a librarian after this webinar to us, we'll take a closer look at it and give it the attention it deserves. Let's see. Someone asks, when there are years missing from the spreadsheet of bills, does that mean there aren't bills from those years, or they're just not available online? There's definitely bills from every year. If we're looking at the spreadsheet and there's gaps, sometimes it will be sessions that go over 2 years. So you see 27 to 29. That's all that's going to mean. And if you dig into them, you will see that in the source documents. So yeah, there are bills every year. Um, let's see. Uh, I wonder if each version of a bill has its own legislative council's digest, or does that just get created once for the final bill? They are in a limited fashion, I believe on every bill. Going back here, I'm just going to click at random. We're in 1929. We're just going to click on something. The Legislative Council's digest will also be amended in each different bill version. So when the language of the bill changes, so does the Legislative Council's digest. Maybe I went back too far. These don't appear to have it. I could look into that a little bit more thoroughly, but let's pick something a little bit more. Forgive me, Ledge Council, if you're on, and I don't know. I know that you were around in the 60s, that's for sure. But I don't know when you were founded off the top of my head. Um, yeah, Legislative Council's Digest here, first version of a bill. Here we see the next version. It says that it was amended. Legislative Council's Digest is amended here too to reflect changes in the bill language. Okay. We have a question. Is the Ledge Council's Digest in a bill the same as the one that's published in the final statutes and amendments version? So again, like this first version will change. The final version of the bill, the enrolled version, that will be the same as in the statutes. I I have not seen a change since from those versions. Um, okay. All right. How do you track when laws are repealed or sunset? If we are talking about current laws and regulations, there is a way to, through the California Legislative Information website, to track things. You can create your own account here and log in and start tracking pieces of legislation. You can see every little change and things to that effect. Um, let's see. I don't know that there is a mode just clicking in here. I'm going to go for something not quite on this topic. Um, let's see. Yeah, you can log for each piece of each code section, you can add it to your favorites, track it, see whenever something changes. Something like this, probably not going to change anytime soon, but you can, with a free account, you don't need to be a state employee or anything like that. But you would do that through this website. Okay, it's 12:50. I have been talking for quite a while. Um, if there are some more general questions, I would love to try to answer them. Uh, if I didn't get to one of your specific questions today, I am sorry. Please email us or send it via our Ask a Librarian. It's just the easiest way to sort all those questions that we didn't get to answer instead of trying to pull them from this chat. Um, That way, we can ensure that myself or one of the law librarians will get to you. Um, to do that, we've got, let's see here. Um, we've got information on our handout, and then our contact information is here. Um, you can also visit us at these hours, Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4. Um, you have questions about those bill versions and what's not available online. We've got essentially all of them online, or all of them in person here, dating back to 1867. We have bill file analyses here, dating back to 1975. We've got a wealth of other resources. If there's something that you want to see, go ahead and contact us. We can let you know what we have placed on hold for you before a visit as well. Um, let's see. If there are any last questions here. If not, I could maybe take a look at some other resources. Um, Sorry, trying to sort through some things here. Okay. If not, what I'm going to do is show you a few little quirks about some of these resources that I've found over time. Um, I love this archived legislative information website page. It's got things back to 93, 94, whereas the modern one has things back to 99. We did see the quirk about the House, Assembly, and Senate. One of them needs to be chosen. Let's take a look at our example here. Not all of the bill versions are available if you go back this far. So 93, 94, you won't have the bill versions. You'll just have the history, the analyses, and the votes here. To put that in perspective, if we take a look at the bills that are on the spreadsheet, they only go to 1988. So you should know that between 88 and the early 90s, there's not going to be a lot available online for either the bill versions, for any file analyses. Those statutes and things will be available from the chief clerk of the Assembly Archives, but anything related to the development of those statutes, you'd want to go ahead and contact us. Um, for the information that we have regarding bills, we do have the file analyses in print only currently, back to 1975. It's an incomplete collection. We weren't a depository for those. For those file analyses, you're going to want to reach out to the California State Archives Legislative Records Program. They are mentioned on the handout. They are a truly valuable resource, and they are located a block away from us. So if you're here visiting, one of us should have all that information for you. Let's see, what else is there? Um, okay. I am We do have a question about regulations. I don't really have time to explore a lot of California regulatory materials today. That's going to be something that we do look at, that we're planning to look at in another session of this office hour. Um, the regulations, of course, take their authority from the codes. Um, so they will be related, but it does kind of like build on what we're looking at here. Um, for additional information, a lot of people, when they look at the statutes, they're looking for the bill versions, they're looking for any analyses. Um, The chief clerk of the Assembly Archives also has other information you may be seeing here. If we look back to 1977 about that California Information Practices Act, um, you'll see that there's also listings for Assembly and Senate final histories, which can be useful. Um, let's go ahead and look at the final history for Senate Bill 170, which we determined was um, the bill that enacted the Information Practices Act. Um, and what the final history is going to do is just has a lot of very procedural information here. And what it can ensure is that you're not missing anything when you're doing your research. Um, if you are looking at that spreadsheet of the bills, because they're not official versions, sometimes you'll find that a version of it is missing or a page is missing or something. You can come to this final history and see the date on which each version was introduced, was printed, what committee it went to, on what date. And so you can compare all of that information. Conversely, if you only have the bill number for something and you know it's chaptered, there is a citation to the chapter at the very end of this. Um, you'll also see further on here that there are notes to how the Assembly and Senate voted on things, how each committee voted, and sometimes there's a page number reference. So if we had this final history, which is useful for completionist sake, we could take a look at page number 2352. That's in the assembly. What that is referring to is the assembly journals here. And you've got all the page numbers listed. And we're going to just take a look to see what that says. Some people really like to dive into these assembly journals and Senate journals. They are a record of the daily proceedings. They contain a lot of procedural information. Sometimes they do not have a ton of meaningful information regarding intent, but it's always worth a check if you're looking for more and you haven't found anything. Um, it would be fitting if this webinar ended with me trying to open a very large file and continue researching, but that may be how it goes. Just double checking, see if we didn't miss anything. It's very possible that we did. Again, if you have any questions, please email us or send us an Ask a Librarian request. We are more than willing to help you out. Um, I hope there's at least some of you on here that are looking at this spin for a while and you're like, ah, yes, I know this well. I know this well. All right. Well, with that, folks, I'm going to refer you back to this link here where you could find all of the pages of the Assembly Journal. It just may take you a few minutes to load thousands of pages. I appreciate your time today. If you have any questions, please follow up, and we hope that we will see you again on another webinar. Thank you.